We are now live streaming.
Were we live streaming before at all?
Nope, we just got going.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do this again from the beginning. So we will move this along very, very quickly. This is the Return to School Steering Committee meeting. I apologize for the late start. We were having some technical difficulties. I'm Pat Hopkins, Superintendent of Schools, and I will very quickly introduce members of this steering committee. We have Becky Fless, School Board Chair. If you could say hi, Becky.
Good afternoon.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Hi, good afternoon.
Alicia Morris, Director of Special Services.
Hello, good afternoon.
Karen Moody, Laura E. Richards, Principal.
Hello.
We have Gabe Dostey, Director of Operations. He will be joining us shortly. We have Jared Dumas, the Gardner Area High School Assistant Principal.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Nate Stubert, who is the Gardner area, or the Gardner grade 6 through 12 Athletic Director.
Hello, everybody.
Katie Gould, the Helen Thompson's Principal.
Hi, everyone.
Dean Hall, a middle school teacher and the president of the Teachers Association.
Hello, everyone.
Mary Whitten, a high school science teacher and the science department head.
Hello, everyone.
Patsy Adams, a grade 5 teacher at the Pittston Randolph Community School.
Hello.
Molly Rogers, a West Gardner parent.
Hello.
And we also have Michelle Aya, a Gardner parent, who I believe is joining us, and Veronica Babcock, who is the school board vice chair, who was unable to join us today. So to get us started, I want to start off by introducing to you Denise Osgood. Denise has just been hired as our pandemic response coordinator. She is a member of our community and just has a tremendous background. I am so thrilled to have her join the MSAD 11 team to help us oversee our response to this pandemic and help ensure that we have a safe return for staff and students when they return to school in another month or so. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise. If you would just introduce yourself and give us a little snapshot of your background, we would appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you very much, and I do appreciate being here. Just a couple of comments to preface my introduction. I did listen to the steering committee videos prior to stepping in. Today's my first day, and I will tell you what jumped out at me is your competency and really solid rationale for your decision making. So I think you're really well positioned to make some very good decisions. And in my conversation with Pat and Angela is I really am here to support you as a team, because I really see the overarching goal is the safe return to school with some objectives there also of improving remote learning and also just continuing on with your improvement in education so that doesn't slow down any. So those are really the priorities. You probably are interested in a little bit of my background. I'm first started out as a pediatric nurse. You can add up the numbers, but I actually was hired when I was 19 to be the head of a pediatric unit, and that was a little scary. But from there, I've done nursing all over the hospital, been in charge of the hospital on the weekends, done licensing. I worked at Colby College in college health. I actually was there during the H1N1. And I felt like I was swimming in the H1N1, and that's where we taught an entire college population to cough in their elbow. I've done accreditation and actually did some school nursing in there. I actually had the Gardner High School and half the elementary population. So you're really in good place now to have nurses in all the elementary school population. I did Maine CDC for 2 years, the prevention programming, which I really enjoy doing prevention. So Director Shaw was my boss for when he arrived in Maine. So it's interesting. And I think if you heard him originally in the pandemic, he said, "We prepared for this. I never thought this would come to pass." And I feel that way now. I trust you all. I don't trust this virus. I did not think we would get to this place. So I would just say that. So I'm very happy to be here. I will have questions for you today. If I push back a little bit, you're the experts, but I feel like there are certain places where it's my job to sort of ask questions of why. So if I'm irritating in that respect, I also will let the principals know. I will be visiting the schools. 3 of the principals sort of had an impromptu visit today. And that really is not a gotcha kind of thing. It really is to just kind of see where you are in the moment. The reality is, if we look at how many days between now and when, and I would advocate for teachers when I go to the principals meetings with teachers, that they be ready for students to walk into the door August 31st. And that, I think Pat really wants that next week to be troubleshooting and really anything that the teachers need. That's not a whole lot of school days left. I mean, prep days left. So, but I'm confident that we can get it done.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. So to kick us off today, I thought I would first just do a brief recap from the school board meeting on Thursday night. Very brief. There were 2 important items that we need to know, be aware of, is that the school board did approve the recommendation that came out of the steering committee that school open in the blended model, the hybrid model, or in that yellow model. So that is what, that's where we're opening our schools, how we're opening our schools, and they approved the recommendation to push the first student day to September 8th. So that will happen. By pushing the first student day to September 8th, that will give staff 8 full days to prepare for students returning. Okay? Those are really the big ones right now. Beyond that, there was a conversation about athletics, a discussion of whether we should be supporting athletics if there's any risk of us not being able to really practice the physical distancing requirements that are required. So I just want you to know that conversation came up. No decisions at all were made. It was determined that we need to receive more information from the Maine Principals Association before we move forward. There's been no date set for that conversation. Right now, we just need to get more information. Okay. Becky, do you want to add anything to that conversation? The outcome of the board meeting?
Yes, just that I think that I received a phone call earlier in the day on Thursday from a board member who just really wasn't comfortable voting on the return to school plan if we hadn't even broached the topic as a board of athletics. And it unfortunately has created kind of a row within the community because people think that the board is just saying no to athletics, which is not the case. We just haven't had the opportunity. It was not on the agenda, and sometimes things squirt out like that aren't on the agenda. So we weren't prepared to talk about it. And we haven't really got the information from the MPA that really outlines in the same fashion that this committee has done the safety measures that will be in place in order to make transportation safe. And my understanding is that there's a meeting tomorrow morning with the MPA, Mike Burnham and Mike Doolin. There's two mics. And the and a representation of superintendents to actually pull that information together so that we can have better conversations around it. So that's where we're at with that.
And for clarification, Becky, athletics was on the agenda. It was just an item that was on the agenda, but it was not intended for a comprehensive conversation about athletics, right?
And for us to
we were just expecting a very brief update. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
I hope that satisfies everyone. And please know that the board is not opposed to athletics. That's not where we're at all.
Right.
Have to have the chat.
Right. And you mentioned the transportation guidelines. We're still waiting to receive those transportation guidelines. I received an email last evening from the commissioner, and we were told to expect those guidelines to be released the beginning of this week. So we'll wait and see. Okay. All right, so with that, let's move on to update from our committees. If we could start with Angela, please.
Sure, thank you. As you know, the learning plans were presented. We're moving into the yellow plan to start the school year. And so now the administration is working diligently to enable that plan to take shape. The core instruction meeting happened this morning, and most of our time was spent on internet accessibility. So trying to understand, again, how many families will struggle with accessing the online learning platform and resources based on their in-home internet accessibility, and how we will proceed so that that is not a barrier if possible for our students. And so we will need to, we are working on identifying some priorities and then procedures that support those priorities and aligning a budget to support that. And we're also, there's a number of action steps that different members of the team are taking in order to bring more information to the table next Monday. So that is something that we will continue to pursue and then have a clear plan of action and communication out to families. We discussed the enrollment survey briefly, just saying that our plan as a community is to have virtual parent meetings. That was mentioned at the board meeting. As principals are developing and designing those and feeling prepared, then they will communicate with their families as to when those will be. They're trying to launch them in a fashion that if families have students at different schools, they won't be happening at the same time. And so more information is forthcoming. And then after those parent meetings have been conducted, we will send out an enrollment survey. So that's different from the survey we sent out asking families, how might they like to proceed under these conditions, green, yellow, and red, and engaging their interests. So that could inform our plan, our design process. Instead, this will be, okay, now you have all the information that we have available to you. Will you send your child to school using the hybrid plan? Will you send your child to the remote learning academy? And these are the conditions that we'll support for, these are the expectations for the remote learning academy. And, or will you be providing an alternate form of learning, as in, are you planning on homeschooling or learning somewhere else? And so those are the questions we'll ask so that our enrollment is a little clearer than it is now, and we can ensure that then staff assignments make sense. We have the right number of students with the right staff. And then we proceeded to talk about attendance procedures. Attendance will be taken. That was clear in the presentation on Thursday night. Attendance in person is not a problem. We have PowerSchool and a process that we already use. Attendance through the Remote Learning Academy is something that we are comfortable with and have a plan, have a draft idea of how we'll do that. The challenge is on the hybrid scenario, when students are not in person, what will be our strategy to understand if students have attended, and what will that look like? We believe there's supposed to be some guidance from the Maine Department of Education around that. So I'll be pursuing that a little bit further. And if not, I've already reached out to my educational community, and we are kind of co-designing some strategies in-house, and we will have a clearly crafted plan for that as well. So that's where we spent our time, or how we spent our time.
Great. Can I just add one thing, Angela? As you referenced staff assignments and how you are, or you will be, trying to get additional feedback, input from parents on whether their students are going to be attending school or not so that you can determine the staff assignments. I want to make sure that this committee is aware that we are still trying to figure out whether there are staff members who are unable to return to work due to some medical conditions. We had hoped to have our staffing figured out by now, but some of the documentation that we must have still has not come in. So that is making Angela's work and her team, and the administrators, it's making it very difficult to do that work without knowing exactly how many staff members and which staff members will be here or who will not be able to return due to medical conditions or childcare or another factor. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. The longer it takes for us to have that information, the more challenging it's going to be for Angela and administrators to fully flush out the remote learning plan and the hybrid model. Okay. Questions or comments for Angela? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. All right, Katie Gould, you're up next. Communications.
Okay, last week we prioritized, we have a lot of breakout things happening and different projects that are on sort of a running list. This week, well, coming out of that conversation, we're really looking to prioritize sort of based on the urgency, what projects need to get done first. So we're prioritizing 1 through 3. One of the projects on the list, Pat, you've referred to in a couple of meetings, and it is that you'd like to film a video message. Is that on the agenda for a little bit later? Because I will just stop there, but I did want to make sure that you're all set for that.
It is not on the agenda anywhere else, so we can discuss it here. I have started working on my script. I spoke with Michael Johnson this morning, asked him if he would be available sometime tomorrow. And in a perfect world, if I can make everything align, my intent is to have that video released by the end of the day tomorrow.
Wow.
Now, my script right now is only about 2 sentences long, so I have a lot of work to do between now and then. But there is a sense of urgency. The decision was made by the board on Thursday night, and I know that message, that information has to be sent out to families as soon as possible. So after this meeting, I will work on my script and do my absolute best to have it ready for distribution tomorrow night.
That's great.
Okay.
That's great. Okay. Michael Johnson is sort of, we're funneling everything to Michael as a member of our committee to get loaded onto the website. If you tried to visit our learning scenario document over the weekend, you realized there was trouble accessing it, and that was because we specifically have Michael on that role for a reason. He knows what he's doing. So the plan is accessible now. What would be really helpful to Michael would be for all committee member note takers to just directly forward each weekly set of notes to him. He is loading all committee notes onto our website. So it's important that those stay current, and it's hard for him to poke into every committee folder. So if you could remember that and just send them directly to him, that would be very helpful. We are working on that frequently asked question document to add, and we know, and I'm sure that building administrators are fielding the same frequently asked questions. The thing that's taking a little while longer, we'd really hoped to get that posted last week. We want to make sure that the information, that the questions are hitting what people are really wondering about, which at this point is almost everything, and that the questions are consistent. The responses are consistent and accurate. They're not going to change. And so I've been working with the handbooks that are soon to be released to make sure that the information located in the frequently asked questions document is the same information that families will all be receiving. students will be receiving, staff will be receiving. So that is in the works. It just hasn't been posted yet. This Thursday, one of our nurses, Kristen Martin, is game to record another video. This one will be about hand washing, the practice of frequent hand washing. You remember that we're tied to the requirements for every time a student removes a mask, there's hand washing, boarding the bus, exiting the bus, entering the building, leaving the building. So certainly it's going to become a really important part of the schedule and our routine in every building. So that's an important one we want to get out there soon. Another idea that just came out of last week's meeting was this idea that we have a slogan. So that we really want to sort of brand that we wear masks. Like in our community, we wear masks. So I do have, I don't have permission to share, but I thought it might be worthwhile. We'll come back to that because it would take me a minute to just find it. But there is this idea that if we could come up with a slogan and promote that we're a community that practices these safety requirements and that it takes all of us together to stay safe, that we could, one, launch that, and then two, weave that into all of our communications. There is a great graphic that one of our committee members shared. I know that we have a lot to discuss and we started late. So instead of searching for that now, I will just kind of leave you with that. And then I did want to share that we also, I think it's time, based on some of the questions that I've been fielding and that our committee members continue to have and report out each week, the tutorials around the online platforms that we're going to be using. I think it's important that those are posted now. Angela did share a bank of tutorials. That will also ease the burden from our committee having to film all of these. It does become time sensitive, although, I mean, Pat, you gave a great example of you have an idea, it's urgent, Michael can be there tomorrow. It doesn't always work if we have more players involved. So that is a great resource, and we will sort of vet those to prioritize the ones that need to be posted sooner than later within the context of what the plan is, without being overwhelming. Parents might not know what they even need for resources at this point, but I moved really quickly. That's all I've got. Questions?
Questions, comments? Great, Katie. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will pass that on to the committee. Patsy.
I just want to say I love that idea of a slogan. That's really cool. I think that would be a great thing.
It is cool. I'm going to find that image and try to figure out a way to show you without, interrupting the entire meeting.
But Katie, if we don't eat up all of our time during this meeting, we have a little time left at the end, remind me. And we'll set some time aside for you to show us all. Okay?
That would be great.
Great. Okay. Athletics, Nate.
So I'm going to make up some more time because there's really no update from athletics. We didn't have a meeting last week, and we're still waiting on recommendations from the MPA. We're still waiting on the pods to be created for our regionalized scheduling before we can move forward on that. So we're still just waiting.
Are there any other decisions that your committee has made, or points of conversations that your committee has had that you could share? I don't know that there is.
There isn't. We canceled our meeting last week, primarily because of the meeting that everybody wanted to join, the big staff meeting. And we do have some topics that we want to discuss this upcoming week. We're going to start delving into spectator participation at our home games, and some things surrounding just concessions, and one of the topics that we're kicking around is having something similar to graduation, where we have maybe 1 or 2 tickets per athlete. We had a brief conversation in our last committee meeting about that, and then possibly having no spectators at all. So there's some information that I want to share with the group from the meeting that I had this morning from the pandemic task force that I was on. So we'll talk about those kinds of ideas and take it from there and see where it goes.
Okay, thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
Questions for Nate? Okay, great. Food service.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jared Dumas. I co-chair food service with Linda Sargent, who's our director of nutritional services. So we have a meeting next week. We had held off on meeting for a little bit until we got more direction from this group and from Pat and the school board about where we're going. And now that we are kind of moving more directly in that hybrid direction, it gave us a chance to kind of start to solidify what everything's going to look like. So Linda and I have been talking this week. She emailed all the building principals today to collect information. We recognize that one of the goals of the food service is to be flexible because we're trying to build flexibility along with some streamlining. So we reached out to the building principals today to find out what lunches are kind of starting to look like in their buildings in terms of times of the day, how many lunches are we feeding in CAFs, are we feeding in classrooms, are we doing both, so we can start to so she can start to build some building specific plans with her staff for how we're going to feed the kids who are in the buildings on the days that they are in the buildings. We are also trying to formalize some plans around how we do our meal distributions for students who are going to be learning from home. And we know in a hybrid model, everyone's learning from home at least part of the week. So right now, we have a couple of different plans, a couple of scenarios that we're considering. And part of the direction we go with that is going to depend on what is allowed. So, one of the scenarios we're looking at right now is having parents pick up meals at the school as we did in the spring. We've really started to try and focus based on feedback from this committee and from others on limiting the days of picking up meals to as few days as possible, trying to get down to 2 days, theoretically having a pickup for cohort A and a separate pickup for cohort B, knowing that, of course, some of the students are in the buildings in the early part of the week, some later. So there are a few challenges with that, and we're trying to figure out what's going to make the most sense. In one scenario, Linda thinks we could do a pickup for cohort A, where they're going to need meals for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Doing a pickup on Tuesday so that they have 3 days worth of meals, and doing a Friday pickup for cohort B where they're going to need their meals for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Of course, the challenge is, do you have them pick it up early in the morning so they have their meals for that day and the subsequent days, or do you have them pick it up the day before so that they don't have to come so early in the morning? They could maybe coordinate a pickup with a time when we have more staff available to help pass out the food. So we do have it laid out, and I have a document that I'm happy to share with this group, but I hate to put anything out there that's solid without, I don't want any misinformation to cause an issue, but we're looking at what that's going to look like. Linda is also waiting to hear from DOE on the possibility of doing all of our meal distribution on Wednesday, curbside pickup for residents who are able to come, and or some kind of bus delivery. Obviously, if you do all of your meals on one day, you're reducing the number of times we're asking folks to be available to get the food, but you're also potentially creating a scenario where folks are picking up meals on Wednesday that really aren't to be used until Monday, Tuesday. So she's really looking at all the possibilities and trying to find out what DOE will say is okay. So we're still panning through all of that. We're meeting as a food service committee on Wednesday in the morning to update the entire committee and get input from from our food service workers and from teachers and from our parents on the scenarios that she's laying out. And we're going to go from there.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, as you said, I think one of the options is that as long as we're in the hybrid model and we are not transporting students on Wednesdays, our bus drivers will be available.
It would be a
And
great
so-
thing to do if we could make it work. Real quick, I just remembered you folks were wonderful last meeting, and we got approval for the heating cabinets, and as far as I know, those have been ordered. Linda also asked for an amount of money, about $190 or so, to purchase some ice mats. The idea being that if we do transport food by bus, we'll have a way to keep those cold during transport. So I think that's gone to the resource committee, and I believe Karen had it on her list for this week to discuss. So I just wanted to put that out there. But I think it would be ideal to do that, if at all possible, at least for even part of the week. Even if we can't get those cohort B kids who need their meals from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, until a parent pickup at the end of the week or beginning of the week, one less day where we're asking parents to be coming to the school is ideal. Trying to find a good pickup time is a little bit tricky too, and Linda threw out the idea of having meal pickups coordinated with student pickups. Obviously, that would reduce the number of times we're asking parents to come to school, but it also could cause a congestion issue. So we're working on how could a parent come, pick up their child, maybe go to a slightly different area to also get food while they're already at our building. We're really trying to figure all of it out. And I know I'm feeling a little short on details, which has kind of been the way this seems to have gone, but there is work being done to sort it all out.
Mary?
So we need to think too about if Wednesdays worked. We may have some weeks where we don't have that day because we have a shortened week, or we got to figure out how we're going to deal with the cohorts during those short weeks when we have Monday holidays.
For sure.
So how that's going to work, administrative team has discussed those short weeks. And I've discussed it with the other area superintendents, because again, we need to coordinate the way we operate our calendar for our students in capital area tech. And we're just going to keep the calendar as it stands. And when you start calculating how many Monday holidays versus how many Thursday or Friday workshop days across the entire year, there's like 1 day difference. It really does work out overall. So the first week of school, we'll have Monday will be a holiday. Tuesday will be cohort A. Then we'll have our regular Wednesday, in which students will not be in the building. And then it will be cohort B for Thursday and Friday. And we will continue to run it that way. Once you get into the first week of October, we have a workshop day on a Friday. So in that particular week, cohort A will be in twice and cohort B will be in once. So,
okay.
Jared?
Thank you. I would like to mention to this committee, and I think it's important that folks know that it is one of the things we're also looking at, and we'd really like feedback, especially if people have concerns about this. Linda is discussing and looking into the possibility of bundling breakfasts and sending them home with students so that they can eat their breakfasts at home. One of the thoughts is we're considering how we might limit both, traffic to collect breakfasts, or, even if we don't bundle them and send them home, finding a way to streamline breakfasts. Obviously, in some buildings where we're limited to the number of people in a space, like I know, for example, at the high school, students usually come and kind of grab their breakfast as they come into the building in the morning, and when we're looking at limiting you know, traffic in the hallways and limiting, and we're tightening up the amount of time we have for those kinds of things. Normally, Linda's considering how she could send breakfast home along with the lunches so that students would have 5 days worth of breakfasts when they do their pickups. And, you know, I can see some pros to that and I can see some cons to that. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that's something we're talking about, and we'd really like feedback, particularly if that's something that this committee and the community would rather we didn't do.
So Jared, last spring, the federal government and the state of Maine provided waivers for our food service program, allowing every family who wanted a lunch for their child to receive a free lunch. Those waivers, to my knowledge, will not exist for the start of school. So as we talk about these meals, these are meals that will be paid for by the families who do not qualify for a free meal, or for families who qualify for just a reduced meal, correct?
Yes, thank you. Linda's understanding at this point is that the meals are, you know, paid students will have to pay for their meals because we're going to be serving under the National School Lunch Program. If you're free, her words directly from our last communication, free and reduced meals are both free for students as they were last year during the normal school year. You know, I don't know if that's accurate or not. Free and reduced meals are both free for students as they were last year. But I know students who do not qualify for free and reduced lunch will have to pay for their meals this year. That waiver is not in place for the start of the school year.
Okay. And as in years past, we would strongly encourage all families to complete the application form, whether you think you qualify or not, because we do have families that will qualify when they don't anticipate qualifying. And so that benefits the family. It also benefits the school district because it helps to increase our overall percentage and allows us to have greater access to federal dollars. Karen?
Just a clarifying question. So with the hybrid days, students are going to be in session on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Do we also
Correct.
provide meals on Wednesdays as well, or is it
Yes.
so?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. As long as we count it as a student day, we have to provide meals. And even though the students are not in physically in the building, they're still going to have work to do at home. Teachers will still be available. They will be conducting office hours so that they will be engaging with students who need their assistance. Becky, you had a question? I'm sorry, you're on mute, Becky. You're all set? You're all set. Give me thumbs up.
Sorry, I was leaning on my hand.
Oh, okay.
I've never.
You're good. Okay.
Pat,
Any
Steve,
other?
oh, sorry.
Gene?
Can you just
Yep.
repeat that last thing? Because my headphones went out. About Wednesdays. I think you're talking about Wednesdays.
Oh, yes. Wednesday is still a student day. And so if it's a student day, we're required to provide lunch or meals for students. Teachers, even though students are not going to be in the building, teachers are still going to be working. Staff will still be working. They're going to be holding office hours. They're going to be engaging with students. There's going to be prep time. There will be a lot of work going on behind the scenes with our staff on those Wednesdays.
Has it been determined yet whether staff will be in the building or not in the building on Wednesdays?
That has not been determined. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the type of work that needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else for Jared? Okay, great. Then
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Then let's move on to Gabe. Gabe, if you can give us an update on transportation. We didn't talk about transportation last week. And
Yep.
then give us an update on facilities and safety, please.
Sure. So for transportation, we are actually going to have our meeting this week. I'm going to set it up for Wednesday. We ended up not meeting last week because it just conflicted with the all staff meeting that we had. So Charles has been in the office. I'll give you an update on Charles, what he's been working on and trying to put everything together. And Traversa, our program that we use, is trying to help school districts across the country to make what we are trying to work miracles with a little more user-friendly. So they just rolled out a seating assignment portion of the Traversa programming. So that way we can denote exactly how many students can fit on a bus and place each student in a specific seating assignment spot. And because we have the our routes and the addresses from that, we can pinpoint exactly where these students need to be sitting on the bus. And it helps to facilitate all that process of it, which will be a great help. So the drivers aren't trying to figure it out. Administrators aren't trying to figure out a seating assignment. This program can actually help us to do that. We also, they're helping by realizing that a lot of students across the country are being put into cohorts. So we've worked with them, and they believe they're programming with designating a student a specific group A, group B, which is a cohort. We can split up the students in that programming with each just giving them a group designation, which helps us to split them apart and will help us doing the transportation process of it. So Charles right now, he's weeding through the data because Traversa just had a new update. And so with that, we need to make sure that the students that we have on the busing now are the correct students for the correct grades. Every year this time, we have the Power School, when it does its moving of students from one grade to the other, we need to make sure they're on the correct bus because it moves them in Power School, but all it does in Traversa is it says, oh my God, there's a grade change and we need to update the busing. So every 5th grade student that was moved to 6th grade, every 2nd grade student that's moved to 3rd grade, we need to go through and manually change their bus assignments for all those students because their busing has changed because it puts them on a different route. So we have to go through, and Charles is weeding through and doing all those in the system. And then, of course, any new students that come in to the district would need to be updated too. So we're just trying to get all the students' information correct before the information comes to us about the different cohorts, so we can then divide them up as needed. So, and I know that work's still in process. Yep.
Karen?
So Gabe, are you saying that you're going to use transportation to identify cohorts, or you're going to get the information from us? Because I believe the administrators are the ones who are going to be placing the students in cohorts, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, there's like special ed students that we have to consider, and where the siblings are in the high school and pre-Ks and all over. So I'm pretty sure the administrators are doing that, and then we would let you know which cohorts those students are in.
That correct, right? Gabe, you understand that, correct?
Yes, yeah. I'm not designating which cohort they're in. That's why I'm waiting for all the information to come from the administrators, and then we can split the groups, the students up into their specific cohorts in our system.
For the buses that they're
correct. Sorry, my computer.
Buses. Is it so that you can place them on the right buses together? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, I need to, because the runs may change depending on the cohorts.
Okay.
So that's my worry. If the runs are going to change any, we need to adjust once we get the cohort students and make sure if there's too many on one bus, we may need to redo the runs to make sure our numbers are correct. That's all.
Okay.
And that will, the information that we're hoping to get from the DOE and the transportation department this week will dictate hopefully what we're able to do with our transportation numbers. Yep. So
And so, I'm sorry, Gabe, the Transversa software update, is that included in the amount that we already pay, or is that another add-on that we need to purchase? And if so, how much is that?
no, it's already part of the package that we pay for.
Great.
Yep. So we
That's
do not need to
exactly
add
the way
any-
I wanted you to respond.
Yeah, so it's perfect. It's no cost to us. So that's great.
Love it.
Yep. So that's pretty much it for the transportation department. We did receive, which a while back before the end of school, we received 6 of our new buses because we have those in the yard now. We're going through and making sure that the two-way radios are installed. And also, so everybody knows, these new buses that are coming have the side camera on them to hopefully mitigate some of our passing school buses with the red lights on problem that we seem to have as an epidemic across the United States. So, so yay to the new cameras. So, so a couple of the drivers have been in kind of one at a time just to take a look at the new buses. So they all want the new bus, of course. So they're not all going to be able to have the brand new bus that came in. So yeah, that's it for transportation. So as
Dave,
far as
I just had a couple of questions on transportation.
sure, go ahead.
Did you have any update on the alcohol-based hand sanitizer? You said you really couldn't use that on the bus. It is a flammable.
Right. So that the information that we're hoping to get this week will give us some guidance on that.
Okay.
That's my hope. As of right now, it is not allowed on the bus because it's alcohol based.
Okay.
And I know that the CDC is really pushing the alcohol based sanitizer. If we would have to switch over to a non-alcohol based sanitizer, the difference between the two is the time that it takes for the sanitizer to work on your hands. So it goes from 15 seconds with the alcohol base to 30 seconds with a non-alcohol base.
And I think we'll have to follow DOE, whatever their guidance is
Yep.
on that.
Absolutely. So we'll have to see how their guidance is with that. It may come down to that's on the parents to do at home before they board the bus. One of those things. I'm not sure.
And it could, and that reduces the risk on our part if the expectations are that is done at home.
Right.
That doesn't sound unreasonable to me. The other question I had is who cleans the buses? I know there's guidance on how they should be cleaned.
Yeah, sure. So the drivers are the ones that right now clean each of the buses. They would be the ones to be spraying down the seats between runs. We have a setup where we do a high school, middle school run, and then there's a time frame that the drivers have to get to start their elementary runs.
Okay.
So in that time frame, they would have to go through and spray down the seats to disinfect before the elementary students would be able to get on the bus.
Okay.
And it gives plenty of time. The dwell time for the Nutrifect sanitizer disinfectant that we'd be using is a 10-minute dwell time. So, and it's a green certified product. It's the safest one that we have on hand that any staff member can use.
Okay.
That's why we're going to use it. Going towards that instead of anything that would require they have gloves on or anything like that. This is not a requirement for them to have that.
That's
even though we will make the PPEs available for them, but it's not required to be used for that type of disinfectant.
Okay.
Yep.
Gabe,
all right.
Can you hear me, Gabe?
Yep. Okay, go ahead, Katie.
Hey, what's the turnaround time on if you got my list of cohort A and B and you plug that into Traversa, how long before you know the routes? And the second part of the question really is, and would the system then detect if we've got a student who was missed, although we're working hard to analyze that and make sure that we've got siblings together, it would ultimately recognize that, right? You've got 3 students going to this address and this one should too.
Right. We should be able to, by doing this, pinpoint those students that we might have missed that were at a same address, that just for some reason didn't come up. Some of this, which we have a lot of students that go to daycares. So I'm not sure how that's all going to be worked around this whole process, or they only go to a daycare in the afternoon, but they're bused from home in the mornings. So how is all that going to be split up? I've already started receiving the phone calls and emails from parents saying, can I have my child in the morning in cohort A or cohort B? At end of week works better than the beginning. So we've already started having those, and I really know a lot of the administrators, their phones are ringing off the hook with those same questions. And right now, we don't have all the answers. And
you're going to need the time to enter those kids.
It's all going to take time. So obviously, the sooner we have it, the more time we have. And I'll be honest, if we have to change runs, it's going to take us some time in the bus office to get all this accomplished. It's going to take some time. And I know to start off the school year, it's not going to be perfect. We will do our best to get them all correct and in the system correctly. But there will be a couple, I'm sure, that we will have in there incorrectly or just have missed. It happens every year. Or parents will change last minute because they can't go to a certain daycare. So it's going to be a challenge, definitely. Yep. So so that's it for transportation. Facilities, we met last week at the high school. We started our tours at the high school. So we kind of wrapped back up and finished again at the high school because we learned so much going to every different building with the process of this. And I asked Chad to be there just to kind of walk us through his changes and what he's had to do there to make things work. So it was great that he was there and walked my whole committee through the process of how the high school is going to work. And also, we looked at the holding room area and made sure that that's going to work at the front of the building. Walked through and looked at the desk setups, the way they are, and really took a good look at the amount of classroom material that had to come out of the rooms to make it all work. And what teachers are left with and kind of the challenges that they're going to have, even at the high school and along at the other schools, to have some of their materials maybe stored in a different location, or kind of brainstorming where those could be at some of the other schools by looking at the high school. Some of the areas at the high school, we're fortunate to find some either conference rooms that aren't being used. One, because IEPs are going to be virtual. In some of the other spaces, just with cleaning the clutter and getting rid of a lot of stuff, not just teacher items, but even my custodial items that we've had stored in certain areas, and just saying, okay, we haven't used this in years. Let's get rid of it, purge it away, and we can use this for teachers to store their items, file cabinets, those sort of things. So trying to make spaces that we've never had before. So that was good to look at that, and just looking at, again, me, Chad, and Mary went through in the science department and went through and placed all the classrooms together. So it was great that they were able to go up and look at those rooms to see how they were laid out and feel comfortable that, yes, we can fit 20 students in a classroom at 3 feet apart, and how they would really look. So that was great for them to walk through. We're going to have a meeting this week with them and to start really trying to get some protocols down for, especially for the custodians, for the specific cleaning of each room, the bathrooms, all those sort of things that we need to do with the custodial end of it, with the cleaning part of it. So that's, yeah, question? Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, just in, I did do rounds in 3 of the elementary schools today, and some specific to the rounds that you did was you referenced the isolation rooms that we're required to have.
Yeah, sure.
And I am going to meet with the nurses. They did reach out to me, but I did have concerns that the isolation rooms that have been identified might not have a sink or a bathroom that's even close by. And if you're talking the highest risk medically, that just is just something I brought to the attention of the principals, because I think they've been very thoughtful about how to try to do that. The other piece is to look at some are identifying the isolation room that is separate and distinct from the normal clinic, but you want to think about the flow of the clinic. We don't want congregation of students that are not feeling well standing around the support staff in the office. So I think I do want to talk with the nurses about that. I will tell you, as a nurse, I'm very concerned about having to take care of children in which I cannot wash my hands and they can't get to the bathroom easily, and then when the bathroom is sort of contaminated, if you will, this high risk, we just have to have a contingency for that. I'm not asking you to solve it today. I just think I think the nurses can troubleshoot a lot of that with the principal.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. And if the room needs to be in a different location, then yeah, we need to see what we need to do to work that in and how that's going to work. And I also have met with Siemens to look at the rooms that we've pinpointed. So if it is going to be a different room, I would have to re-meet with them because the system that we're looking at for the ventilation might be a little different if it's a different room. That's
right, negative pressure there. And I just would really recommend that principals, we really lower the bar on, and parents understand, do not send your child to school with any hint of illness. My preference would be that you stop that student coming before they come through the doors, and that it would be a very infrequent use of an isolation room. But the American Academy of Pediatrics says, young students, children, adolescents don't transmit as readily, but they're more likely to be asymptomatic. So we almost have to assume that any student could potentially, even as a nurse, we can't tell who really is more likely to have it than not. So it's a challenge that way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. And if the nurses can help out and we can, if we need to change something, now's the time to do it, for sure.
And then my one other question that gave me red flags when I listened to the video was the Omni Shield and spraying the antimicrobial. And anytime you start spraying something around kids and adults, it makes me nervous. I'll just tell you that.
Sure.
Bells and whistles just go off for me. And it didn't help me any when I looked at the material safety data sheet. So I couldn't really find where is the strong recommendation that we do this Omni Shield and use that product, because it does require special licensure, as you pointed out, and I think Pat pointed out.
Sure. So the Omni Shield I have not ordered or until I get more information on it. I did do some more research and trying to find some information. So it wouldn't be, it's a one-time spraying that we would end up doing every 60 days, basically. And it's not during any time when students would be in the building. So as soon as it dries, it makes the microbial shield that's on all the devices, basically. So I need to do more research on it before
I'm not convinced. You can convince me. I'm just not there yet.
No, I agree.
I would tell you that I have asked principals that I've met with that I think one of the things that you can do, and I did as a substitute teacher, is at the end of the day is to wash all the desktop and the high touch surfaces, which would be the doorknob. Yeah. And that really takes less than 5 minutes. And it is a really good infection control strategy that I think you probably should do ongoing. And then I think that doesn't take a lot of time on the part of the teacher, but it really relieves your facility staff. It would take a lot of time for an individual facility person to do it. A teacher did ask today, would they also be responsible for doing that in the restroom? And I said, I think that really is above and beyond what a teacher's duty is. I've had that experience of having to do that and we're really talking elementary school here. So I think that's just a strategy that I really strongly recommend that we adopt, is that it's just that we get used to as teachers, substitute at the end of the day, and we would want to put on gloves, but at the end of the day, when you walk out of that room, the high touch surfaces, and then the facility staff can do that deep cleaning, that spend some time with the bathrooms and other surfaces, recognizing that it's more of an airborne, but those little ones that respiratory secretions are in particular on the surfaces. It's just a strategy that I would like to put forth to your committee for consideration.
So yeah, so that is a great conversation for us to have. More so, I think, at the administrative team level, to have that level of specificity and detail. So some good feedback there. We still need to hear from Gabe on ventilation. That big picture. Where are we with the ventilation?
Sure. So I've done the initial walkthrough with Siemens for the isolation rooms. They tried to get things scheduled in the end of last week to start the survey work, and I have not heard back. I sent them an email on Friday, and I still haven't heard back today. So I'm getting a little worried that they don't understand the urgency that we are in with this. So I'm going to keep pushing on my end. I do have a direct contact with the new supervisor at Siemens down in Portland, Mike O'Brien, he used to be one of the contacts that we had here for the district. So I'm going to put a little pressure on him and see what's going on with the survey part, so we can get that part going through Siemens. Definitely.
Yes, it was my understanding that survey was going to happen last week, and that we would have information by the end of last week. It was going to be a 1-week time frame, and then Thursday night, the information that you had is that it was going to be into this week.
Yep.
We are at a standstill in being able to order certain items until we have a better understanding of ventilation, because of the potential cost of the ventilation system. There are other requests that I can't even recommend that we approve until we know what ventilation is going to, what it's going to cost, what that's going to look like.
Yep, definitely. And I do understand for sure. So Siemens does the large items. I am actually having our local electrician, Target Electric, go through and fix some of the small items that we found for ventilation fans that need some work done to them. Primarily bathroom fans and office ventilation fans that we found that some of the timers are broken. What they call a overload fuse switch in a couple of them we found faulty. So we're doing some of the work. They worked all day actually at the high school today, redoing some of those vent fans. They've done some work already at Pittston, and they're going back this week to finish up some of the items at Pittston. So I've already talked to George Phelps, the owner, and I'm working on a list to give him for all the small items, so we can pinpoint all those little things and get them done. And then we won't have to worry about Siemens having to deal with those small ones. They can just focus on the large air handler ventilation units. And we can do the PM work and verification with those units throughout the school.
Okay.
Yep.
And
yep.
Gabe, do I understand there's Siemens is assessing two things. They're assessing the overall ventilation of our schools, and separate and distinct is the isolation rooms?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yep. So the engineer I met with last week was to specifically engineer the isolation room ventilation units and to make sure they size them correctly for the rooms and do the proper automation that needs to be done to be able to put a sensor in the hall and sensors in the room to make sure it's a negative pressure for everything. Yep. So that's the Siemens piece and Target Electric that I have for ventilation.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I want to make sure we give Karen's committee. We cut her short last week, and we promised we were going to give her ample time. So I want to make sure that she has lots of time left.
Yep.
So-
This will roll right into Karen's committee. So perfect segue for you, Karen. I'm going to finish with good news. The good news.
Good.
The good news is we received our shipment from the state of our PPE this afternoon.
Woo! Okay. I wasn't. I'm sorry.
No, it basically, I will say though, the communication with that warehouse and department has been zero. I've been trying to get a hold of them since mid last week and was frustrated today and sent an email directly to the supervisor. And I don't know if that generated some action on their part, but the product showed up at the high school with no call to me. So I had no idea it was there. They called from the high school saying it was there, so I ran over. Well, by the time I got there, the central warehouse from the state called me saying that the product was leaving their warehouse. And I said to the gentleman, I said, well, it's already at the high school, so I already know about it. But it's all there. Everything me and Karen ordered showed up there. So we have it. We just need to now break it apart and distribute it to the schools. Because I'll be honest, I don't have room for all of it at the high school for very long. So it's down in our storage shop down below. So there's barely room for the tractors down there too. So we'll definitely have to work on the list for each school so I can get it distributed out to them. And Karen, we will have to work with the DOE to make sure we can get the rest of the materials that were not able to be ordered. And like I told you earlier in our meeting, those items are still unavailable through the portal website. So they're still not in yet. And I'm hoping that they will send all of us an email when they are available to us, especially gloves. That is the one big thing right now that we cannot find across the board. Well, Karen found a couple boxes, but I don't think that's going to take care of the whole district. So we will keep working on gloves. And I'm working also through Cleanorama, which are some of my other suppliers, to see what we can do for glove procurement instead of through the state. We need something. They said we may just have to pay more, which we may have to pay more. If we need them and want them, we may have to.
Well, and if we need to or can just purchase some boxes to get us through the first few weeks,
Right.
knowing that the state's gloves will come at a later time.
Yeah.
If we have to do that, we have to do that.
Yeah. So I did write up a large bulk order through Cleanorama, which we talked about the last steering committee meeting. So I have put in a large bulk order for cleaning supplies and paper supplies because they're very short. The numbers are short across the country. And so that way we know we will have ours on hand and Cleanorama is willing to store them in their central warehouse. So they are working on getting all the material for us so we won't become shorthanded for those items. Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Gabe. All right. Are we ready to move on to Karen and the resource committee? Okay, Karen, that gives you a good 30 minutes.
Yes, thank you. So
Okay.
some excitement, but we've been doing all this conversation and talking and discussing and trying to get it all ordered, and to finally actually have something arrive and be able to cross it off the list is huge. I mean, it's just been, a lot. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so I can go through the resource list again, because that's going to kind of frame the conversations about what we need to do. So hang on just a second. And Gabe, I sent you a text about my isolation room. We need to chat if we can briefly after. All right, hang on a second. I'm gonna find where it is. All right, so I can't see everybody, but can you see me? I mean,
Yes, but it would be helpful if you could make your screen a little bit larger.
Yep. And I'm gonna have to run in my office because I'm at 10% now. I'm gonna, I just realized it. My computer doesn't want to do anything because I think it's tired. Hang on, I'm hurrying. Did it get bigger for everybody or no?
No, it's frozen.
Did it work?
No,
Hello?
no.
Looks like I'm frozen. Can
Right.
you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what to do. You can see it?
We can see, there you are. Try that again. Okay. Yes, we can see it now.
How
It's larger, but the screen itself is too small for us to see, or the window's too small for us to see what you have.
It's taken up my whole screen though. There's nothing else I can do.
Pat,
All right,
Yes.
I'm
if people change to the, oh, there goes the hand. Sorry, I got sidetracked. If people change
Hang on a
their
second.
layout
I think it's because
to,
my
so I've changed my layout to sidebar so that what she's presenting is the majority of my screen. It makes it easier to see. And you have 3 dots at the bottom of your screen, the bottom of your frame over on the far right. That gives you a change layout format.
And Karen, I think you'll have to reduce it from 150% to 125%.
and I think my screen is no longer frozen.
Nope,
I'm
you're
actually
good.
able to move it again.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So you're all good to see it?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so picnic tables. So Gabe and I had a big conversation about the picnic tables along with some administrators. And really, the picnic tables aren't really going to be feasible. You can only fit 2 students at a table. So to buy picnic tables that you can only have 2 people sit at, we just felt was not fiscally responsible to do right now. So we have white tables in our schools. And if we needed more, those would be cheaper, and then we would have them to be able to use inside our school too for like craft fairs and the events that we have during the school year. So we really want to look at using the white folding tables instead of buying picnic tables.
That makes sense.
Yep. Okay, the next one is desks. Now, desks did not ever come to the resource committee, but it got discussed at the administrative meetings. And because we need to do the social distancing and we need all kinds of desks, I think it was close to 300 is what Gabe found. He is looking to submit an order to WB Mason, and each desk, I believe he said it was $85.95, something like that, Gabe.
Yeah, $84.95 a piece, and we do need 300 of them. And these are elementary school size desks. So a couple of the messages I did receive from the middle school and high school, these are not desks for the middle school or high school. We would have to order separate size desks for them, and they are not available in the 4-week time frame. But I do believe with speaking to the administrators there, I think we can get by, at least in the time frame now, to get by with what we have at those 2 buildings. But the elementary schools, that's the 300 we would need to make this work at those schools.
But you don't think that they will be on site by September 8th?
This order here, if we place it tomorrow, they are guaranteing delivery from the factory the week of Labor Day, that Labor Day week, which is, I believe, the week of the 8th. So we may have to move some desks around the building just to get it to work for the first week before we can get all of these desks into the classrooms. They are 4 weeks out, and they're coming directly from factory if we order them out.
And they already are assembled, right, Gabe? You said we just have to move the legs to the height we want them?
Right. They say they will be assembled. When we take them off the truck, we'll just have to adjust them for the grade level of the elementary students. Yep.
So in order for us to actually place an order, we need to have the approval of the steering committee so that Gabe can do a requisition.
All right, is there anyone who is opposed to ordering the desks? If so, if you could speak up since I can't see everyone's face. Okay, I don't hear any opposition, so Karen, you have our approval to go ahead and order those desks tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you. The next one showed up on the list. I'm hoping that Angela can speak to it. I didn't notice it until late this afternoon. Singers masks.
Yeah,
This one got to resource committee.
we put those on the list last week and we reached out to our liaison, resource liaison.
Perfect.
So this came from our performing arts team. There's some significant guidelines around singing, and that of course starts with they must be wearing masks. If they're outside and 6 feet apart, there's an alternate plan in place, but there's inclement weather and we don't know how long this is going to last. And we'd like to be able to have some singing in our general music classes in the upper grade levels. For now, we're starting in the upper grade levels. And they'd like to be able to have some smaller ensembles of chorus or chorus-like. It depends on the grade span we're talking about and how that configuration lays out in our instructional plan. But in any case, these singers' masks have been designed to provide more breathing space when the mask is on. It goes fully over the face, the nose, through the chin, back to the ears with the elastics, but they actually have a little bit of a form-fitting feature that allows them to go a little further away from the face itself inside the mask, and it supports the singer's ability to sing without feeling like the mask is sucking up into their face and to project, and to obviously not become airborne with any of their particles. And so because we're more easily able to change the curriculum for the K-5 community, and these are really masks designed for a little bit more mature audience anyway, physically. We're asking for some masks for the 6 through 12 learning community that would be specific per child. We would not be sharing them across students. They would be tagged per student in the particular assigned programming.
Karen, are you requesting that the steering committee approve these today then?
Katie's
Angela?
asking if they can be reused. Yes, they are washable and they can be reused for that student or the students.
And I have a question too, Angela. What happens if the student you've given them to forgets them when it comes time for chorus at the high school or at the middle school? Are there enough for extras, or they just don't sing that day?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would need to talk with David Walker about that.
I think that's a question that needs to be, or that needs to be an expectation that needs to be in place. If you've forgotten that particular mass that day, you don't get to sing that day. So,
well, I mean, I think that's reasonable, Mary. The idea here is that these are to protect students and peers and adults and so on and so forth. So certainly we're not going to let students sing without wearing a mask if they're indoors at all. Certainly, I agree with you 100% on that. I guess what I was thinking of is, do we let them sing with a traditional mask, even though it's much more difficult, or do we just say you don't sing? And that's the nuance. I would have to defer to someone who's more of an expert in performing arts than me.
Yeah, okay.
Good question.
Are they limited to wearing it strictly for chorus, or would they be wearing it all day because it was them giving to?
Yeah, that's a good question too, Molly. I don't think they'd be limited, but because of the design of it, it protrudes much more out from the face. And it might feel awkward to wear that, throughout the day. But if it's protecting them and others during the day and someone really loved it,
Right.
Why they couldn't wear outside of the.
I don't know. Is that going to be the new thing of you have a mask for this, a mask for that, and
It's a good question.
whether you're changing it? I guess you're changing it for sports. You're changing it for music. It makes sense.
All things that are new to me.
So the actual sum of this really concerns me. You know, as we start talking about all these other things that we're ordering, I don't know where we financially stand. I don't know, do they really need 150? Do we have 150 students that sign up for chorus?
Yes, we have 150 across the two buildings. Absolutely, they're enrolled.
I wasn't thinking the two buildings. I was thinking just the high school.
Yeah, no, this is across our two buildings. They are enrolled. The high school, especially, it's a credit bearing course.
Okay.
It is not an optional. They bear credit when they take that course.
Okay.
That's how it's been reported to me. Chad might be on, so he might be able to clarify that. And the other thing is, I forgot to mention that might be helpful to know. And Karen, what you're reading is also appropriate. I mean, I think it's important to recognize the cost as it compares to other items, certainly. What David Walker would like to be able to do is work with his boosters to secure. There's a bunch of modified equipment that he would like to secure for any future band usage. So any wind instruments right now, unless they're outside in distance, without any modifications, they can't really be played indoors, right? A flute or a trumpet. But there is equipment that can be placed on those instruments to keep them safer. And we have to explore that further. But if that continues to be true, and this is coming out of a lot of the performing arts study, the colleges out of Chicago and some other areas, if that continues to be true, then there's a cost associated with that. And he would like to see if the boosters can help support that cost. And so he didn't want to incur all of that cost plus this cost through the Performing Art Boosters group, is what he was thinking.
Angela, I can respond to the expectations of chorus. So for graduation, all of our students need at least a credit in fine arts, and chorus for 1 year definitely meets that requirement, but it also provides them some of the credits that they need because they need 22 for graduation. So it provides those credits in both ways.
So much better said than what I was saying, Mary. Thank you.
So I guess we were looking to look for approval for the purchase.
Wait, I have one comment before we do.
Yeah.
The last middle school schedule I saw, I don't know where they would have music, so I'm not sure we need to order them for the middle school if there's not a time for them to have a chorus.
It's a good question, Dean. Right now, that's a work in progress, as I understand it. They will have general music class, and then the band and the chorus. If it becomes a virtual experience, they certainly wouldn't need the masks, and including virtual small group instruction. Absolutely. But as I understand it, that schedule is still in development, and Thursday is when they're refining that schedule. So we could put this on hold for a week until we have a little more clarity.
That makes sense to me. If we're able to put it on hold for a week, I would like to do that if you feel comfortable, Angela.
Yes, I understand the need to know more information.
Great. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna keep going. So the next part is, so we've been talking about trying to have support staff on the buses to help the bus drivers, to help with the social distancing and behaviors on the bus during this COVID time. So this was brought to me this morning about having the support staff being paid at a different hourly rate. It would be just a unique to the COVID rate. So Andrea Dish is suggesting that anything that's above and beyond the duties that a support staff person would do during the day would be paid for at a COVID rate. so that you don't have somebody getting paid more for doing the same job.
That is not something that this committee is going to be able to address. That is a school board issue
Okay.
that will need to be addressed between the school board and the associations. So
Okay.
it's on our list. I know it needs to be addressed,
Okay.
and it will be. Looking at your spreadsheet, Karen, I see that you have lines through the tents, right? No, where you were before, you have lines through tents, which we had discussed last week. Are
So
you
we're
going to update on that?
Yep,
Update us
so
on that?
still
Okay.
I'm still working with a bunch of different companies to get estimates. The original estimate that we got from the Auburn company included the sidewalls.
Mm.
So I will also say that when I met with the resource committee last week, the other person who was working on the tents said that a lot of the Amazon tents came with a lot of warnings, like don't leave them up overnight. So that isn't going to work for us if we're trying to keep these up through November. The other thing is, I'm looking at the company from California. They don't come with the stakes, and they aren't the ones who are going to actually install them. So there's some concerns for liability since they're not going to be the ones to do that. So we're still working on it. I'm not quite ready to have anybody make a motion on this right now. I want to really make sure I speak to Jason again at the place in Auburn. He was getting a quote together for me with no sidewalls.
Great. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so there are some things that we don't have yet, and we just want to know what you would like us to do, if we want to pursue it or not. The first one is gloves. So the DOE is supposed to be supplying us with 17,280 boxes of gloves. If we were going to attempt to order what the state was going to do, it would cost us $3,000. And that's for $42.98 per box. So that's through looking at Amazon.
Do you know, Karen, if you were to place the order through Amazon, do you know whether they are available, the gloves are available and could be here before the start of school?
It changes every day. I wish I could say yes and then tomorrow still be able to say yes. It's how fast we can get it because everybody's looking for them. Last I heard when I was talking to Sarah today, they were available, but they may not be tomorrow.
So what is your committee's recommendation?
Well, part of me wants to say, how much do we need to get us started for the school year? Because if the DOE is still able to supply them to us later, I don't want us to spend tons of boxes, tons of money. But this one, the 87 boxes, it says will slightly exceed the state's order. I don't know. I don't know if we try to half it and see what we can get.
So Karen, we also are going to need, I think, in some of the areas like science and the STEM program at the middle school, when our kids are working with lab equipment that they can't have their own set, we're going to probably use more gloves than what we typically do. So we order some of ours. We order some normally every year to replace what we use typically. We order them from WB Mason, so you might check their price as well. But I would think it would be prudent to have them. If we don't use them all this year, we certainly would have them to use over the next couple of years too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, so I've also included gloves into my bulk order through Cleanorama just to see if they can get them. I will send Ted at Cleanorama an email right now to see how he's making it with getting gloves through them and what the price is too. So I can update you on that.
So maybe what we could do is see if we could get approval to purchase gloves, but will not exceed a certain amount so that we can at least get the school year started. And
Yeah.
And one of the concerns I have is I don't even know if the nurses who put in their orders for their regular budgets, are going to have the boxes of gloves that they ordered there. I mean, I just don't know what the availability will be.
And I would support the purchase of gloves. I have no idea how to estimate a ballpark of what would get us started, but I don't think we're going to find ourselves in a position to have boxes and boxes of unused gloves. I think between food distribution and recess duty teachers and staff helping to clean, we're going to find ourselves using more gloves.
So if we were to order 35 boxes and each box contains 200 gloves, that's 7,000 gloves for approximately $1,500. Do you think that's enough to get us started until the rest of our supply comes in from the Department of Education?
I would say, I want to say yes. The other thing I want to let you know too is Kristen Martin was also checking in with her husband. So Hannaford has been getting boxes and boxes and boxes of gloves, and they feel like they have way too many, and they may be able to share them with our schools depending on what kind they are. So Kristen was going to be checking with her husband to see what they could maybe donate, or maybe we could buy from them as well.
That would be fantastic.
Can I ask a quick question? Are we
Yeah.
are we making sure the gloves are latex free?
Yes.
Okay.
I found 2 boxes at Goslin's yesterday and bought them just because I saw them and they were available and I couldn't pass them up.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so 35 boxes then?
Yeah, does anyone oppose 35 boxes to get us started?
No.
Okay.
So for my bulk order, I just checked the amounts that I put in there, and that's spot on. It totals up to 35 across the district. So, so I will double check to see if those are available or not through Planorama. We can get back to Karen tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay, the next thing, so we also are supposed to be getting wipes from the DOE, and these have been back ordered. There is a limited amount on WB Mason. Gabe has indicated we should probably order whatever we can get our hands on. Currently, they're $8.49 per container. And if we attempt to order what the state was going to supply to us, the cost for just wipes, $51,364.50. If we try to order 1,000 containers, the cost would be $8,490 to our district. And again, I don't know when the DOE will get their hands on wipes and be able to get them to our schools or not, but we need to figure out what we're going to do for the short term.
Yeah, and I'm actually hearing that this is probably going to be a long-term problem across the country. Yeah, that wipes are just not going to be available. So if we are able to take advantage of the supply that WB Mason has now, I think that's a wise move.
I would agree. I don't think we want to be in the position of being without wipes, to start the school year, and so I absolutely would concur that would do that.
Okay.
Great.
And does anyone object? Great. Okay, thank you.
Gabe, I think you already kind of talked about OmniShield. That's on hold, right?
Yes, that is correct. I've put that on hold until I can get more information on that.
Okay. All right. So the next thing is gowns. So again, DOE is back ordered. We were supposed to get 5,535 of them. They are available on WB Mason. We did look there today. And we're looking at see maybe we order 1,000 and the cost would be $5,490 for the gowns. And these again are for symptomatic. So the nurses would be wearing these. So if they're with symptomatic students, some of our special ed programs would need these. Anybody that's up close and personal to a student with symptoms.
Jared?
Karen, this is Jared. Are the gowns reusable?
No, these are disposable ones. You wouldn't want to reuse a gown over and over again because then it's contaminated when you're near a student.
Sure. Thank you.
Gosh, I'm just worried about our money. As we keep dwindling away here, I'm getting quite nervous. 1,000. Do we feel like 1,000 is necessary to get us started? I have no idea what to anticipate in regards to gown usage throughout the year.
I just would say, Pat, we don't want to be without gowns.
Yeah.
But again, I think some of this is our practice of really not bringing in the student into the school when they are symptomatic. Gowns you can go through very quickly. If you want to order less, but I certainly would want some for every single school for the nurses to use.
Katie asked a good question. Do we have any indication when these items back ordered will be available?
No.
No.
And Gabe checked with that again when he was checking today. They have no idea when they're coming in.
And then if we order 1,000, do we have to order 1,000, or could we order half of that or a third of that?
This is just a number that was
Okay.
tested. So I'm okay with ordering half of it, or even less than that. I mean, I think 500 gowns in 3 months seems like excessive amount, but I don't know how many
I think
I'm gonna go through.
I would defer to Denise here on a number, but I think we have to start with some. So I support.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd go any lower than the 500. The bottom line is that you put it on with that individual student who is in isolation, and you really should change it in between when you're talking the individual in those isolation rooms. And I think I would like to see that volume very low, but then we have our students who have our normal respiratory symptoms, and we don't know whether, that's COVID or not COVID. So I want to keep that order for DOE, but I wouldn't want our staff, from a risk perspective, our nurses in particular are going to be the ones using these, to be probably any less than, that's the 500.
Denise,
Yeah.
Denise, you said at the beginning of the meeting that you're going to be meeting with our nurses
Yes.
this week. Is this a question you can ask of our nurses and get some guidance from them?
Next Monday, absolutely, and I can put that out. I have to be honest. I think it's a little bit of a shot in the dark for them, in that we just don't know the volume that we're going to be dealing with. Again, we really want to do everything to not have the student with symptoms enter the school. But how difficult is that,
Right. So then how about this, to keep us moving forward here? I want to make sure Karen is not feeling too rushed to get through the rest of her list. How about this? Karen, why don't you go ahead and order 500. Denise, when you meet with the nurses next Monday, talk with them about this. And if they feel that 500 is not sufficient, we can check with Karen to see if another 500 can be ordered at that time. And we can talk about it at our next meeting. But this way we at least get 500 ordered before WB Mason runs out.
No, that sounds good. And what is the DOE projected volume, Karen, that we've ordered from them if it were to come in?
5,535.
Yeah, okay. So I would, okay, I will absolutely do that, Pat, no problem.
That would be great. Thank you.
Gabe, do you want to talk to the storage containers?
Well,
let me unmute myself. Sure, go ahead, Pat.
I would say Gabe already mentioned this last time.
Okay.
So I think if we can all remember that Gabe mentioned last time that it's going to be necessary for the district to purchase some storage units outside of the buildings at all of our schools to help hold some of the supplies and equipment that teachers and staff are going to have to remove them from their classroom. And you had said it was going to be around $100 a month or $110 a month. What we didn't take into account was the delivery and the pickup fee of $75 each. So what he is stating that each month it will be $880. Okay, but if we don't get this, what's the alternative for storage?
There isn't one. We've been trying to find spaces in the buildings, and we are very limited. We're always limited with storage space, because we're actually using storage areas that we once had over the years as office rooms for staff. So it's really tough in some areas with storage. So we really need these buildings, and these are storage containers that items are going in there that teachers will not be able to access all the time. They're going to be outside. We're going to store tables in them and items from teachers' classrooms that they need to put in long term until this epidemic is over. So I want to make sure that we understand that we're not going to be able to access them all the time for items in the classrooms.
So as I look at this, Gabe, so what you're saying is because of the setup fee, the first month is $14.80, the last month is $14.80, and in between is $880. So what you're saying is that the containers for 12-month period will cost $11,760.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what would it?
Yep. Go ahead.
What would it cost to purchase them, and then when we were done with them, we could sell them?
Yeah, so I can look in to see what the cost of the units are if we do a purchase. And also I'm going to see what the, if there's any difference if we did do a full term contract.
Okay.
I actually talked to Andrea today while I was at the central office about that. So I just need to reach out to the owner tomorrow to see what that contract would be, if that would change anything or not, to get that taken care of.
That would be great if you would do so, Gabe. Thank you.
Yep, not a problem.
And then Gabe is also looking into the flammable liquid storage cabinets as well. I don't know if you need, Gabe, are you still looking into that?
Yeah, so those cabinets, I have not received the price back, but he does say that they are available at his supplier. And they are about $800 a piece. I just have not received the final confirmation on those. And those are cabinets that we need to store all the sanitizer in. So we will get those in as soon as possible.
Okay. Karen,
Yes,
you just passed a section here on masks. I do have a question for you. I am working on the student handbook, and in the template that we receive from another school district, it states that all students will receive 2 masks from the district. Based on the masks that we're receiving from the Department of Education, will we be in a position where we can provide 2 masks per student?
I'll have to look into that total amount. I don't think so.
Okay, and I'm talking reusable masks versus disposable.
Right. So hang on. Well, I'm not on the spot right now. I can't tell you that.
You absolutely, if you can research that and just let us know, I would appreciate it.
I'll do that for next time.
Great, thank you.
So there was one thing I wanted to bring up to this committee as well. So the other thing is, so these masks are supposed to be washed. Now, I know washing machines and dryers were brought up, but honestly, I have a washing machine and dryer at my school, and I believe most of the elementary schools do. I don't know if any of the schools don't. I was talking today with some other people about, so how are we going to wash these? And one idea I had is, you can buy like those white mesh laundry bags that you can put things in and you zip them up. If we were able to get those for the teachers, they could label their, use a permanent marker, label their bag. The kids could label their masks. We could put their names on them. They go in the little washing bag into the washing machine, and that way the whole class stays together. Otherwise, we're throwing all of these masks in bulk into the washer and dryer. And I don't know if you want to do that or not.
I will tell you, I have a big old caution about, I mean, there's around us assuming as a district, the washing and infection control, there's temperature standards for infection control. And you're really, that's something that we dealt with at Colby because of their health center. So there's a lot more to it than you think. It's not just a matter of throwing it into the washing machine. So if we're going to provide, I would strongly advocate if we're going to provide reusable, once you receive them as a student, you are now responsible in your home to wash them. We're going to recommend that be daily, but we have no control over that. I do have a big caution around that we not take that on. These masks also are extremely contaminated once they're used. We don't know who, so I have a lot of concern.
Okay. We'll have to talk more about that. Thank you, Denise.
Okay. So just a heads up, we did interviews for the nurse at both the middle school and the elementary school today. We do have some really good candidates, and so stay tuned. Linda has not given me an order yet for the mats, the ice mats, but I believe she has put in the PO to do those warmer heaters to transport food from the cafeterias to wherever they're going to be needing them.
So how much are those heating cabinets? $10,000, $11,000?
Yep, total $1,795 each with a total of $10,000. We are ordering thermometers for each of the nurses. Instead of doing multiple for each nurse, we're doing one a piece. And that's $99 for each of those. And that was approved at that last meeting, but I want to let you know that that's getting ordered. I do have a little bit of a concern because Gabe sent me some information, and another district is ordering like a crazy amount of thermometers. And I don't know why they're doing so many. It's like 1,000 that they're ordering. 1,000 thermometers.
Do you want me to just talk to that really quick?
Yes, please, because I was freaked out a little bit. I'm like, well, we're ordering 6.
Okay, so I received a call from our rep at WB Mason, and he just placed an order for the Westbrook School Department to send home a touchless thermometer and an 8-ounce bottle of sanitizer to each student in the district.
Oh, no wonder. Okay, that makes sense.
That's why the total number is so high. So of course, if we did that in our district, it would be close to 2,000 thermometers. They're doing this so every family at home has a thermometer for their screening and also sanitizer for them. And Denise, this is maybe where they're getting around having the sanitizer on the school bus. They sent it home, so any student has to sanitize their hands before they would get on the school bus.
So putting that responsibility on the family.
Yep.
Karen, I would say we don't want to be, we probably want a backup thermometer or 2 here. We don't want to be without one. So that's something to think about. I know I'm just coming into the conversation, but
we had put out here last week to order 6, one for each school nurse. So this committee would have to give me approval to do more than that.
I would just say for that dollar figure, for what we're spending on other things, I would get a couple more thermometers.
I'm okay with that. Should we have 2 per school?
At least 2 for backup for the nursing team at the very least. But I think 2 per school is not excessive either. But minimally 2 as backup.
Okay. All right. We've already talked about the picnic tables. Nothing from communications. Athletics. I don't know what you want to do with the athletics piece. These are all the cameras. I don't know if I believe the school board said they were going to wait.
Well, the school board is going to wait to make a decision on what it's going to do regarding athletics. So they need to make that decision first before we invest in the purchase of cameras. And I would say personally, my priority is going to be the classroom and the buildings and making sure that we have enough money from the CRF grant to cover all of our basic needs before I'm going to feel comfortable in dedicating what I see here is 3 different proposals. One could be 40,000, another is 33,000, and I can't see what the third option is.
26.
26,000. I am not opposed to the idea of live streaming and trying to give an opportunity for families and others to watch a game remotely. But I really feel like our first priority has to be the classroom and the buildings and making sure that we bring students back safely and staff back safely.
Can I present an alternative to that proposal?
Sure.
So Terry and I talked last week about the possibility of just purchasing some camcorders for the athletic department and having a parent tape the games. You know, that could be essentially their in to watch their kid play, and then we could post them on YouTube or something after the fact, after the game has been completed. It's not ideal, but it's certainly going to be a lot cheaper than spending $40,000 on pixel art cameras. So
Yeah.
maybe if we put $2,000 in there for some nice high quality camcorders and did something like that.
Yeah, given our concern that we're not going to have enough money to cover all of our costs, 2,000 certainly does sound better than 40,000. I don't know how others feel about that. I guess, Nate, given the conversation that the board had, I would like to sit to hear what the MPA recommendation is and to hear what the board's proposal is going to be moving forward. I don't know if camcorders are difficult to put our hands on. I would think that we could order them and have them here in a relatively short period of time. Do you, I don't know
Yeah,
if Terry's
so too.
listening. Yeah, so I think if we wait a couple weeks, I believe that we would still be able to move forward with something like this if that were the decision of the committee.
Okay.
Does that sound okay? Does that sound reasonable, Nate?
Yeah, that sounds fair. I also had Gators in there as well. Karen, I don't know if you saw that.
I stopped sharing. Hang on a second. I didn't see them.
Go ahead.
I'll
Roughly 200.
200 Gators, do you recall how much they were, Nate?
$5.50 a piece.
I don't know why it's not showing up on the, all I see on here are the cameras.
Really? Because I've added the Gators. I've added some additional staff to be present at home contests, just for crowd management if we need it. And there were some other things too.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, here they are. Yep. Gator buffs for athletes to wear during games. And it looks like the Elliott Office Products would be supplying those.
Correct.
And then it looks like the supervision piece.
I don't know how others feel, but Nate, I'm going to say I still feel the same about some of these other items, the Gators and any staffing, until we're comfortable in, or that we're sure that we have enough money to bring students and staff back, that we're able to meet all of the guidelines put forward, that has to be the first priority. And if we're able to do all of that, then absolutely, I think that we should be spending some money on athletics as well. But I'm getting very nervous not knowing what the ventilation is going to be. I am nervous. So, and we don't yet know about staffing. As I said at the beginning, we have some staff who may not be returning. And if those staff members don't return and they're eligible for family medical leave as a result of COVID or sick time, then we're going to have a number of staff members who are going to be out accessing that time that's available to them. And we're going to, at the same time, be paying to have substitutes in the classroom. That's going to get expensive very quickly. I support them having gaiters, just so you know. And I do think you're also going to need some support for having some other adults. I just don't, I don't want it to be believed that I'm not supportive here of athletics. I just am a little concerned right now about funding something that is optional for students to participate in versus funding what is absolutely essential in order for us to be able to open our schools.
And that's all
Nate?
I have.
Sorry,
Okay,
I was
that's
on-
all you have?
I
Is
was
that,
on mute, yeah.
oh, okay, I just, a response. Does that sound
That's fair.
reasonable?
That's fair. I'm
Okay.
just worried that if the time comes and everything, you know, we have fall sports and everything, it might be too late to order some of the items that we have on there, like the gaiters, you know, because we do start September 8th. I would want to make sure that all of our athletes have something at that point in time.
Mhm.
And the way the conversations are headed, I feel like there are some sports that might be required to wear them during competition. Football might be one of them. Volleyball might be one of them. Golf might be one of them. And even maybe the conversation about soccer and field hockey started as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we had them in time.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And if we're going to move forward, I want to have them in time as well. I'm just, the
Pat?
ventilation system is making me nervous.
Yeah.
Mary?
Is it possible that next week, Karen kind of gives us an overview of what we've decided we've spent so far, and hopefully we'll have a better idea of ventilation, and then maybe revisit the Gators piece for next week, and hopefully we'll have some MPA input at that point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am hoping to spend a little time with Denise, who is going to be meeting with Andrea to take some of the information that Karen has produced, put it on a spreadsheet so we can see we have 1.6 million. What have we committed? And to make sure that we're deducting what we've committed from the totals to give people a visual.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think I just saw a recommendation that we flip the agenda and do the finance resource piece first.
Yes, and we can do that as well so that
sorry,
Karen has more time. Jared?
Would the cost of providing gaiters for the sports teams be something that potentially a group like the Athletic Boosters or a group in the community might be potentially able to help with, at least up front, considering Nate's concern around timeliness?
Well, I know that boosters, I've talked to boosters about uniforms, and they're worried that they're not going to be able to raise money this year due to lack of concessions, because those are their big, big money makers.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, I would ask though, maybe could we purchase rather than all of them, maybe 50 of them, and if we don't use them for athletics, we could certainly use them for as part of our staff, you know, PPEs that we use. I'm sure we could put them to use.
Yeah, yes. Alicia, are you still there? I know
Yes, I'm here.
Alicia, I know Alicia has also mentioned the possibility of using gaiters for some of our special needs students. That it might be better for them than masks or shields. So if we were to order a few, would you be interested if they were available for your department to access them?
Yeah, the hard thing is I wouldn't know how many. We really want to start with masks first. If masks don't work or that you're unable to wear a mask, then we would move to the gaiter. So we could certainly order some. I just wouldn't have an exact, I wouldn't even know how to estimate a ballpark as to how many we would
Okay.
need.
Okay. So I would guess, I would look to the committee. Is it possible for me, Denise, to work with Karen and Nate behind the scenes to really look at our PPE, our masks, some gaithers potentially that we could potentially share throughout the district if need be. And if we don't need it, then we have a few on hand for athletics. Are you comfortable in me kind of behind the scenes as a way of helping facilitate this conversation? It is now 6:15. I know we started late, but I know I need to wrap up. So I see a few thumbs. Anyone opposed to that? Okay, that way we can do the logistics behind the scenes. All right, and Karen, you said that you are done. That is your
Yep. And I will
report.
work with Andrea to get a report ready for all of the things that we've approved and start ordering.
Okay, perfect. Then that really takes care of the CRF funding. And I just, again, wanted to update staff handbook. I hope to have it out tomorrow. Hopefully we can have that happen. And the student handbook, I've started working on that with the administration. And I've shared it with some staff members. So that work is moving forward. As soon as it is ready for distribution, I will make sure that members of this committee receive a copy so that you can see it. I would like to have the staff handbook and the student handbook eventually go to the school board for approval. So, all right, that's all that I have. Anything else from members of the committee? All right, then next week, 4 o'clock for the 6th, and I will look at flipping the committee meetings. I'm expecting at that point that we should have hopefully a lot more from Gabe on the ventilation. We'll have a lot more from Jared on the food service, but I will definitely put Karen first. Since she's been last all along, she'll be first on the list to give us an update on the resource committee. And there is Katie, is that from you?
Yeah, can you all see it?
We can. That's very nice. Great
All right,
idea.
I don't have permission to share this. So Pat Caldwell and Ruby, thank you for sharing your creativity. But the thought would be something like this, some positive message. Some of the ideas were in tiger territory, we wear masks. Masks, it's better than sitting at home all day. Masks, they're worth the hassle. And you can see what that one says. So throwing that out there, we'll move forward with that when we meet this week.
Love it. Thank you, Katie.
Katie, I love their slogans. Those are awesome. Those are just great.
Okay. If we are done, all set, then I am going to close this meeting for tonight. And we will see you all next Monday at 4 o'clock, if not before. Thank you all. Really appreciate all of your work. Good night.
Thank you so
Good
much for
night.
everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Denise, so good to meet you. You're gone. Bye. Hey, Terry.